Hello guys, welcome everybody to Mando Monday. This is the series where you guys ask the questions and I, of course, answer them. This could be to do with anything related to Counter-Strike Global Offensive, CSGO investing, or future update related, if that's Source 2 or an upcoming operation. If you guys have any questions for next week's video that you guys want answered, make sure you leave it down below of this video, or anyone to be exact, ask Mando, and then ask your question. But before we get to the questions and some other things, if you guys haven't really stayed through Mando Monday at the beginning, I highly suggest you do this week. There are some very important topics I need to get across, and some lies and deception that I really want to get across as well, because I feel like it's very important if you're anything what invested into the CS community, but also on the content creation side of things as well. Now, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that like button and, of course, subscribe. And before we get into the questions, here's a quick word from our video sponsor, SkinsMonkey. Now, today's video sponsor is, of course, SkinsMonkey. SkinsMonkey is currently the easiest and also fastest way you can buy, but most importantly, trade your CSGO skins. All you have to do is make sure you have your trade link, and on your first trade, if you have a leftover balance, it goes towards your current balance that can be used the next time you end up trading skins. It has 3 ways you can inspect, but most importantly, has a very in-depth inspect feature that you can see corners on a karambit, for an example, that you can't really see otherwise unless you have the item in-game. If you end up topping up your balance, make sure to use promo code MANDO to get up to a 35% deposit bonus and a free $5 on the first trade. So the first thing I want to talk about isn't lies and deception, but it's actually another content creator coming to the scene by XSMercy_CS on Twitter. And specifically, he's going to be starting to make content on YouTube, and his tweets and his Twitter is really awesome. So one, I suggest you go follow him on Twitter. Brings a lot of cool, important CS topics to the table, and putting that into YouTube form is really good, because I feel like CS YouTube right now is kind of at an all-time low. And speaking of an all-time low, I've been on YouTube recently, and I've seen some very large inconsistencies with some content creators. Now, I don't really ever go into this stuff anymore, specifically drama. I don't want it. But when I see something like this, it's hard for me not to want to talk about it to the community and just tell everyone what's going on. And this is pretty much telling you guys need to do your own research on when and what you're buying into Counter-Strike. I have a couple of videos coming out about this week, and this might be its own right here. But I specifically want to throw up this picture on screen. It's not to call anyone out. It's just, you know, the first video is the CSGO case market could be headed for disaster. And the next one, literally a day later, little under that, is why now is the safest time to buy into CSGO. They're just very inconsistent. And one day someone's saying something else, and the next day, you know, the same person is saying the other opposite of that, what they just talked about. And it just makes no sense. And it just comes down to doing your own research, especially when you're buying into something or if it's a good time at this moment in time. So I'm not going to talk too much about it besides that. And if you guys want a video on it later this week, I will cover that on its own. With all that being said, let's hop into the very first question of Mando Monday this week, which of course is from Rahul. And he says, my question is why there are no red lines and factory new, and of course Asimovs and minimal wear and factory new on the market at this moment in time, specifically the Steam market. And that essentially, my friend, is because the Asimov and the red line are float capped, so you can't go over minimal wear on any of these things specifically. Now, the Asimov in certain different forms of different weapons are, of course, in factory new, such as the P90. That with the Asimov can go to factory new, and of course the AK as well. So that's pretty interesting. For the P250 and of course the op and whatnot, those are float capped, and the same thing for the M4, and same thing with the red lines. I mean, if there were factory new ones, that would be very cool, but it also would crash the market if they decided to one day update that. And I think they do that to, you know, not go over the top, and for some skins it really suits that, but really we just don't really have a whole explanation behind it at this point. And going into the future, there might be some skins like that, and how you can tell when they come out, well, you don't really know until any big news source comes out telling you that. Now, our next question up here is, of course, from Neb, and he says, ask Mando, with the amount of players we have, most likely more will be invested in the next major and, of course, operation. Is it better to consider investing into older things like majors and operations? So this is actually a video I've wanted to make the past couple of weeks, and how I personally am not going to be going as hard as I did in Operation Broken Fang, Riptide, Shattered Web, and, of course, past previous majors. Like, I'm never going to go as far and as hard with money-wise and investment-wise into a future major like Rio or anything going forward like I did previously in Krakow and Katowice 2019. It's just, there's too many players in the game. People know the ins and outs of everything, and most likely, I would say 90% of the time, or maybe 50-50, depending how you look at it, if it's Stockholm and Antwerp, it's either going to turn out great or it's going to turn out to be a really big flop. And I just personally don't want to wait 5 years to wait and see if that will be successful or not. And what will be successful and has been proven to be successful in the past is older things in the game. If that's older skins, older collections that you can use for trade-ups in the future to that big higher tier skin. and of course cases and operation stickers from past previous ones. So if you guys want a video covering that and why I'm switching specifically, feel free to let me know. But yeah, I will definitely not be going as hard as I did into RMR, obviously Stockholm and Antwerp. Even though Stockholm had a success, for that being replicated again, I don't know if we'll ever see that, because people are always going to have that thought in the back of their head. What if this is the next Katowice 2014 or Stockholm 2021, which realistically that will never happen. Our next question up here is from Pop, and it's a little bit of a longer one, and he says, ask Mando. I see whenever you talk about cases, you don't really touch on the Prisma 2. From my point of view, it seems really nice and seems to be unboxed a lot. Yeah, the knives are not wow, but the coverts are nice. The AK is quite affordable, and he has to go on and says the case is really nice. It's doubled in the last month. Might be biased since you have a huge quantity, and I'm going to go right off the bat and say you're not biased on this. This is something I've been wrong on in the past, and I'll come out and say that. But at the time I talked about it and didn't really suggest it for many people, same with the danger zone, is because at the time we didn't really have a huge player count. This was earlier on in March and April when I was talking about these cases specifically not being the greatest. Obviously the danger zone was still in the active duty at this point in time, so we didn't know that was going to get removed. My thoughts have kind of changed on that. But with the Prisma 2, I would say the biggest thing with this is the player count has definitely correlated very well with this case. New people coming into the game, they see this case, they of course see it's retired, or at least not in the primary drop pool, so it doesn't drop as much. And the knives are not horrible in it. These are something that have been more in demand recently, which is pretty good. The reds are okay. I don't think they're great, but I mean, you get some pretty decent weapons in there, as well as they sell pretty well. So when you unbox this case, you get actually a decent amount of profit back for you to unbox more cases. That's another reason why people are probably going to open this a lot more than anything else. And for right now, I mean, this thing has had a hype almost to 30 cents the other day. Would I suggest going into it right now? Probably not. I'd wait a few more days to see if it goes down anymore, then make your decision. But if you're playing the long-term game with this case specifically, I don't really see anything wrong with it. Now, our next question up here is, of course, from Robin, and he says, ask Mando, what's going to happen with the Felshin CS20 case? They both have unique knives and decent quantity in the market, yet I feel like they're underinvested. Once an operation drops, I'll be getting a lot of CS20 cases myself. So, good question. I touch on them sometimes. They're just kind of a really niche area. The same thing is with the Wildfire case, right? I believe it has the Bowie knives in it. And it's not that it's a garbage case. Actually, the Wildfire case is really, really good because it has the fuel injector. It's just the problem with these cases on the market right now is, once again, it's kind of like just the knives. They're not very good, but really every single case inside of CSGO that is over 5 years old at this point is, I would say for the most part, past that 30 cents mark, at least in the Steam market, which is a pretty huge step up than where we were just a couple years ago. And going forward, they're going to keep going up, just at a lot slower of a pace than these. And of course, you have instances like the CS20 where it's pump and dump like crazy, but things that are really good with it is, of course, that op. I think the op Wildfire is really, really nice, but overall these cases really aren't really that in demand. Of course, especially like the Wildfire, it's not really in demand. Really, people are only unboxing this for that AK fuel injector because, you know, in a very high condition, it's very, very expensive. Now, our next question up is also from Neb, and he says, ask Mando, Luke, what is the best way to identify if you're watching a good and honest content creator in CSGO? And he goes on to name some, or a dodgy creator, like, okay. So the best way you can identify if you're watching something that's a little shady, number one is just look at their content they've made in the past week. So for an example, like the example we showed at the very beginning of the video, that is some shady stuff. That is really big inconsistencies, not necessarily lies and deception, but I don't think it's just something that's very good overall, and it definitely is not a good look for you. It kind of shows that you have no idea what you're talking about, and also you're kind of just in it just to make the video rather than actually you're passionate about the content, in my personal opinion. Now for me, I never really talk about one specific item, and this is something you should also look at for other people. If they're only suggesting one item you should get in one specific video and maybe a few overall, that's also a huge red flag, and something I like to do is obviously have diverse investments inside of CS. Not go into one thing, go into like 30 different things. So if one fails, you have obviously 29 other backups and so on and so forward. Also, do your research on Reddit, which is not the best, but you can go in the CSGO market forum on Reddit, of course, on Discord, and just get an overall vibe of that person. Usually when I watch a content creator in anything, if they're just in it for the money or just actually enjoy the content, you know, but there's really not much more I can say on that right there. I guess also dodgy sponsors, which is like gambling and whatnot, especially if you're talking about like a monetary item in the game. I think that's a huge red flag if you're sponsored by a gambling website, especially in the CSGO investing scene on YouTube. That for me, it's really weird because you're suggesting these things for people to buy and then you're talking about, oh, go waste all your money on this gambling website to underage kids. Yeah, I don't really agree with that. Our next question up here is, of course, from Zaiwu, and he says, ask Mando, what do you do outside of making content for CSGO? So I play Fortnite zero build on a lot of my time after I'm done making content. I also trade here and there on CS, do some cash trades, just look at the market, try some new glove and knife combos. But for the most part, I'm making content a lot of my time during the day. I'm planning future videos, doing some research if anything's going to come soon. I also have a secondary channel, the Lego channel, which is Luke Builds. I don't upload a whole lot there just because when I upload a video on there, it takes a very long time for me to edit it. I would say 9 or 10 times longer than it takes me to edit a CSGO video. I have to put pretty much all pictures in that video. So sometimes I might have 500-600 pictures all in one video. And that takes a very long time to, one, get from Google, get from different sources and put in the video. But it's a very big passion. That's kind of what it is. More of a passion than a job itself. And for the most part, I just make content, play Fortnite after I'm done content for the day. And that's really about it. Let me know what you guys do. Our next question up here is, of course, from George. And he says, is there a top 10 video coming for knives under 2 and 300, etc.? Or was it just that one video that I uploaded recently? And no, my friend, this is a whole series. And it's something I did before as well. But something I like to call skinflation really hit the market this past few months because of the influx in player count we saw recently. Everything has been going up. As you saw, we talked about the Prisma 2 going up, as well as the knives inside that case. And on the channel, we've talked about how knives have really gone up. And with that, a lot of those older videos are extremely outdated. Now, I'm not going to take them down. If you guys want to look at them, that's perfectly fine. They're some of the most viewed videos on my channel. But I think I'd like to start doing this every 5 or 6 months. And that's pretty much update the knife and glove combo videos. Of course, the best knives for a certain price. And the best cheap knife video, I'm probably going to stop that at $500 or $600. The point of cheap knives, obviously, is not spending a whole lot of money. And I feel like $500, especially for CSGO, is not that bad. You're getting a decently higher tier knife, especially on some of the newer ones that are out. Sometimes you can find a really good deal for them. But no, that is not just a single video. I plan on continuing the series. And as long as prices keep going up, I'll continue to make it as time goes on. Our next question up here is, of course, from Adam, and he says, best cases to buy for a few hundred quantity at this moment. I'm assuming you're holding for the long term, and well, I have a whole list for you right now. So ones I would consider looking at. You don't have to go into one specific one, and this is something I suggest for most people if you're going into cases, at least right now. One, you have to hold for the long term, at least 3 or 4 years, because if you pull out and you sell on a third-party site, you're going to probably lose 30%, because the problem that I see if you're not selling on a place like Buff, case-wise anyway, is you're really going to have to undercut a lot of the cases you're buying, which kind of sucks. But if you do want to end up selling on Buff, if you make 20 cents on a certain case in the future, if that's before the time is up that you're willing to hold those, sell them on Buff, and then what you do with the money you get on there, maybe undercut it 2 or 3 cents. You lose a bit of profit, but you don't lose all of it. Then you buy a liquidated item. This is, of course, a Doppler and Asimov on the op, for an example. In the field testing condition, you buy a few of those, and then if you live in North America or Europe, which most people do who are probably watching this video and also play CS, you sell it on a third-party site in one of those 2 places, and then you cash out to your bank or crypto, and there you go. But for cases right now that I would look into, number 1, the fracture case is extremely cheap. Because it's cheap, you're kind of playing the long-term game. And with going into cases right now, you really have one of 2 options. You're either playing for time or you're playing for money. And if you're willing to spend more money, you can buy a higher tier case, which you won't have to wait as long, but it obviously is a very higher buy-in. And if you don't have a lot of money and you have time on the other hand, which that's really your only option at that point, you can buy a lot more cases for a smaller amount of money. You're going to be holding for a longer period in time. And with that, you can go into things like the Prisma 2, the Danger Zone, and the higher tier ones I talk about maybe is the Chroma 3 Revolver. That's where I would say I would halt personally. I would definitely diversify. And then, of course, go into a few with Phoenix, Operation Broken Fang, Riptide, and, of course, the Breakout case. You can't go wrong with buying maybe 5 or 6 of those in that entire portfolio, because if those really go up, you can sell those and then go into the smaller cases you already have. Now, something I suggest doing, if you're willing to buy in bulk and use a place like Buff if you can get funds on there, if you're buying, I would say maybe even over 100 cases from one individual person, send them a bargain. So maybe undercut it by a few cents, especially if it's some of the lower tier ones, or maybe go as 30 or 40 cents on some of the higher tier cases. You don't know until you try, but that's just another way you can save money, of course. That's about it, and it wraps up for Mando Monday for this week. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys want to do for that deception and lies video in the community of CSGO. If you guys want me to upload it this week, I can make that and put it out for you guys. I just don't want any drama behind it. I just feel like that is something that needed to be talked about today in Mando Monday, because that inconsistency can cost people a lot of money and also a lot of time wasted in their life. And I think that's just a kind of a dangerous thing inside of CS. A lot of people have covered it in the past, but newcomers inside of CS, because we're growing so much in player count, that could be something a lot of people could learn from. Let me know what you guys think. Peace out, guys.